Shana here from Fitz Media Productions, and I'm joined with Julie Spec from Women's Health Barwon Southwest, the Deputy CEO. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you so much for joining me. It's very timely to have you in here at the studio. You've got plenty of things happening, and also recently the AGM as well, celebrating everything that you do. Busy.
Yeah, the AGM was fantastic, particularly being able to, nab Hannah Ferguson. It was just a brilliant event, but I guess, as they say, there's no rest for the wicked.
Yeah.
So we're going off and doing some wickedly wonderful things for 16 Days of Activism, which is a campaign that's focused on the prevention of gendered violence, which will kick off tomorrow on the 25th.
And how exciting to have Hannah Ferguson come to Warrnambool and to talk at the AGM. I feel like it reinvigorated everybody and the work that you guys do across the huge part of Victoria that you run.
Oh, absolutely. It was so validating. But one of the really cool things that I ended up finding out after our AGM, Hannah had to rush off to Melbourne because Hannah was actually doing a world tour. Well, she should be doing a world tour.
Yeah.
She was doing a national tour around Australia, and she had a show the following evening in Melbourne. And she actually praised. She gave a big shout out to Warrnambool and just how welcoming and wonderful everybody in Warrnambool was. So that was just so heartwarming. I'm just like, she made a great impact on us, but obviously we've left an impact on her as well.
So good. And to have the praises sing all the way in Melbourne, but you and the team cover such a huge part of Victoria. I was doing some research, and it is Glenelg, it is all the way to Geelong. That is a huge catchment that you essentially protect and inform. How do you juggle that?
Look, I think with a lot of intention and a lot of passion, really. There's no other way. Everybody at Women's Health and Wellbeing, Barwon Southwest, are really, really committed to the work. We just want to see gender equality achieved. We want to, dismantle the stereotypes. We want to be out there. We want to see women getting much better health outcomes, particularly in the regions. And one of the unique things, particularly around the Southwest, is that all the townships and all the places are so disparate. Right, so it's really, really hard to be able to accessing services the way that they need. So we just feel really strongly about our community. Everybody at Women's Health and Wellbeing Barwon Southwest live and have been brought up and work in the region. So we're doing work for our local places. So that means a lot.
And to have your catchment cover so many regional and rural areas. I know in the Women's Health Inquiry that it had 70% of women had been dismissed out of the 13,000 that they asked and questioned. Having those regional women in desperate need of support and care, that's essentially what you're doing, is to bridge that gap, right?
Correct. So we try to use evidence to develop really strong policy and advocacy platforms. And we also want to use that evidence to find ways for our organisation and the partnerships that we're part of to really enact positive change, particularly for women's access to appropriate health services and care. And information and actually validation. I think that was one of the key things about the inquiry, was that it was one of the very few times I think that women actually had the opportunity, and gender diverse people had the opportunity to be listened to and have their experiences documented. I think all of us would have some sort of experience about the different forms of, whether it's pelvic pain, migraine, other chronic disease and chronic pain ailments, and the way that often women in particular get dismissed. And not only around their own healthcare, but also when they're caring for others and going in and looking for appropriate treatment, the way that women present gets just dismissed so easily.
Huge news to have actually spoken about in Parliament House as well, to have this information on the forefront of people that make decisions in investment, to have these statistics to bring forward, and it further supports what you're doing, legitimises what you're doing, and also shows the state government that this is not just a person issue, this is a everyone issue, really, isn't it?
Absolutely, Shana. I'm so glad you made that point. Because it legitimises the work that our organisation has been doing for the last 12 years. Yeah. But it also legitimises all the stories that the women that we represent and work with have been sharing with us for over a decade. And to be honest, it also validates and legitimises our own experiences, for all women and all gender diverse people across this region.
One great thing that you guys do as well is webinars and training and being able to inform people about what bridging that gender gap looks like, particularly in the health industry. When you're travelling or explaining, and even this webinar that's coming up, how exciting is that to be able to bring this information to the forefront of people's minds? Hard question. It really
is a hard question, Shana. Look, it's purposeful, right? It's us going out and creating spaces where we not only talk to and talk with people, but we also get to listen and get to learn from women all across our region about their lived experiences. And frankly, look, everything is interconnected. Right?
Definitely.
We've got a huge number of homeless women across our region. The numbers of homeless women over the age of 55 keeps growing. The number of, women fleeing from family and domestic violence, that's not halting, overnight. So there's just great community need. But just imagine not having a permanent address. There is no way that you can access, really good quality care. And I don't even want to talk about the kinds of discrimination and things that people might be experiencing if they're, sleeping rough or sleeping out of their cars and all of those things. So, there's a lot of flashpoints and a lot of crisis points all across our region. So health is just part of our experience as women. Health is intrinsically connected to our environment, the food that we have access to, the types of work and jobs that we have to have as well, the kind of safety we experience. Everything is just utterly intrinsically interconnected.
Craving KFC? Jump onto Uber Eats and order your favourites. Delivered by us with our own delivery drivers. It's the easiest way to get KFC from your local store to your door. Order on Uber Eats today.
Pete Harris here from Lucas Brothers Butchers, home of our award-winning Great Ocean Road small goods hams. It all starts from our premium Otway pork, soaked in our signature brine for 24 hours. Then in our smokehouse, red gum wood chips work their magic, creating that unmistakable flavour. Once cooked, we cool, seal and weigh our hams, ready to take pride of place on your Christmas table. From my family to yours, make this Christmas unforgettable with our Great Ocean Road hams.
Is it time to upgrade that outdoor chair? How's your tent holding up? Need a gazebo for that special gathering? George Taylor Stores carry all the summertime essentials that you need to make this summer the best. We'll answer your questions and have you ready in no time at George Taylor Stores.
There is that, old adage, that people might think is sort of a little bit old, but, women's rights are human rights and human rights are women's rights. But women's rights are everybody's rights, right? And I know the work might be difficult at times, but it's also encouraging in a way because we actually live in a time that we're having these conversations, that we're actually talking about equality in a variety of ways. Not only women's equality, but we're able to look at women and all the diverse women, right? We're looking at equality of women across ages, across cultural backgrounds, across religious backgrounds. We're talking for the first time openly about gender diverse people. But the other thing that we're also able to talk about is actually what this means for men, right? Patriarchy isn't just a thing that pushes women down. It also pushes men down. It requires men to conform, and often conform to some very, narrow kind of stereotypes and things like that. So the opportunity to be able to do this work and contribute to the greater good, to humanity as a whole, just so that we can all live better, all live safer, all live in a way where we all actually feel valued. Yeah. We don't have to walk through our lives performing particular roles. We can actually do the things that we want to do and be the people that we want to be and identify the way that, we truly feel inside.
There's such a bright future when we have women like yourselves and what you and your team do. There is such a bright future for them, and they're going to be able to walk so while you ran, and in the same lifetime, essentially. Even having something like that pain inquiry talked about in Parliament House speaks volumes to the work that is being done at the ground level, and then being able to be, celebrated in Parliament as far as information that's actually being looked into and talked about as well. How does that make you feel that this young generation is going to come through and be able to have that freedom and that access and that support as well?
It makes me feel encouraged. It makes me feel hopeful. It makes me feel optimistic. It makes me feel humble as well, because it enables me to actually reflect about not knowing everything, and knowing that the younger women coming up, and especially girls that are, that are growing at the moment and growing into young women, that they're going to be contributing to this discourse in ways that I can't even imagine. And I have to be honest, that is really exciting. It's exciting because I'll get to learn new things, but it's really exciting because that'll amplify and speed up progress.
Yeah.
16 Days of Activism is a global campaign, and this year is the 24th year. And one of the, standout features of the campaign is that it's a time where people are actually asked to wear orange, just to visualise and put that in people's minds. Respect Victoria, which is a state body, have given quite a few different organisations, little pockets of funding to run events and things like that. So Women's Health and Wellbeing Barwon Southwest lead a regional partnership. So I'm not quite sure, Shana, if you've heard about it. It's called Respect 2040. So it's a partnership of about 40 to 50 odd organisations, which actually include a primary school, which include TAFE, which include response services. It's very diverse. It's a very diverse group of organisations getting together, and they've all committed to taking action to prevent violence against women and children and prevent all forms of gender-based violence in our region. It's been running for a few years, but it's only been sort of amalgamated and as a region-wide body for the last year. So as part of that action, the partnership has agreed to run 3 webinars. 16 Days of Activism is a global campaign, and this year is the 24th year. And one of the, standout features of the campaign is that it's a time where people are actually asked to wear orange, just to visualise and put that in people's minds. Respect Victoria, which is a state body, have given quite a few different organisations, little pockets of funding to run events and things like that. So Women's Health and Wellbeing Barwon Southwest lead a regional partnership. So I'm not quite sure, Shana, if you've heard about it. It's called Respect 2040. So it's a partnership of about 40 to 50 odd organisations, which actually include a primary school, which include TAFE, which include response services. It's very diverse. It's a very diverse group of organisations getting together, and they've all committed to taking action to prevent violence against women and children and prevent all forms of gender-based violence in our region. It's been running for a few years, but it's only been sort of amalgamated and as a region-wide body for the last year. So as part of that action, the partnership has agreed to run 3 webinars. And I think you'll be able to share the actual details with the community later on, that will be focusing on some of these areas. So we'll be looking at gender and disaster, right? And I think that's really pertinent for our region, not only because of, climate change and climate weather events, things like bushfire, drought. I know people in this region are really, really impacted by that. So we'll be talking about gender and disaster as a pertinent issue. And the other thing is around engaging men and boys, right? I'd hate to say this actually isn't an issue that affects 50% of the world's population. Gendered violence is an issue that affects probably everybody in the world, right? Young girls, young boys experience family violence as children in the home. It has traumatic impacts. Other forms of violence they might witness in other areas. So this is something that's really important to everybody, and hence addressing the drivers of gendered violence are really important. So things like promoting gender equality. We'll also be doing another webinar which will be around talking about how we actually, can promote change within community. And change within community actually takes a long time. But I actually am encouraged with the progress that we're seeing. I think Australia's never bumped up in the international rankings for gender equality as much as it has over the last few years. Seeing so many women in government, national and state, has been a big factor in our international ratings. We're in the top 10 now. Whereas I think about 6 years ago, or maybe 8 years ago, we were ranked 51st.
Yeah, right.
Right.
That's a huge jump.
That's
huge.
It is.
That's
a
huge.
Massive jump. And it's also education levels.
Yeah.
Right, with girls and women being educated, and generally speaking, en masse, our health is pretty good.
That's awesome.
Right?
That's really good news.
That's an en masse number. We absolutely do know that is really different for rural and regional areas, and especially remote areas. But of course, that's an area that we keep working on. We're going to, continue working and continue striving.
Well, thank you very much, Julie, for spending the time with me. And I'm sure that those that are attending those webinars will take plenty away from it. But I certainly have learnt so much about the work that's going on in the Southwest. So thank you very much for your time.
Oh, Shana, thank you so much for having me.